The piercing shriek of, "Why am I getting wet, human?" echoes through the corridors of the interstellar vessel Horizon, sending a chill down Christian Dixon's spine. He stands frozen, his hand still on the maintenance panel, as water cascades from the ceiling, drenching everything and everyone in sight. Christian's eyes lock onto the source of the outburst, Elva, the Ulian ambassador. Her stunning alien features contort in a mix of shock and revulsion as droplets of water cling to her iridescent skin. The look of utter dismay on her face makes Christian's stomach churn with the realization of what he's just done. The ship's emergency sprinkler system, triggered by his routine maintenance check gone awry, continues to rain down on the gathered crew and visiting dignitaries. Human crew members sputter and wipe water from their eyes, but it's the Ulians who draw Christian's attention. Their aquaphobic nature makes this unexpected shower a diplomatic nightmare. Elva, her ornate robes now clinging to her lithe form, stalks towards Christian, her eyes a swirling mix of silver and purple, narrow dangerously. "Explain yourself, human," she demands, her melodic voice tinged with anger and confusion. Before Christian can stammer out a response, the ship's intercom crackles to life. "Engineer Dixon, report to the bridge immediately." The captain's voice booms, laced with barely contained fury. As Christian makes his way to the bridge, leaving a trail of wet footprints, the gravity of the situation begins to sink in. This isn't just a simple malfunction, it's a potential catastrophe. Earth desperately needs access to Ulium, a rare element found only on the Ulian homeworld, to power its failing planetary defense system. With an alien invasion looming on the horizon, this diplomatic mission is humanity's last hope. The bridge doors slide open, revealing a tense scene. The captain's face is a mask of controlled anger as he turns to Christian. "Dixon, do you realize what you've done? You've jeopardized our entire mission. The Ulians are threatening to withdraw from negotiations." Christian's mind races, searching for an explanation. As he reviews the maintenance procedures in his head, something doesn't add up. The sprinkler system shouldn't have activated so easily. A creeping suspicion takes root. Could this have been sabotage? As if reading his thoughts, the captain leans in close. "I need you to fix this, Dixon. Not just the sprinklers, but the diplomatic mess you've created. We need that Ulium, or Earth's defenses will fail when the invasion comes." The weight of responsibility settles on Christian's shoulders. He nods, determination replacing his initial panic. As he turns to leave, he catches sight of Elva entering the bridge, still visibly shaken but with a hint of curiosity in her eyes as she regards him. Christian realizes that resolving this crisis will require more than just technical skills. He'll need to navigate the complex web of interspecies politics, regain Elva's trust, and uncover the truth behind the sabotage, all while fighting the growing, undeniable attraction he feels towards the alien ambassador. As he exits the bridge, Christian's mind is already formulating a plan. He'll turn this watery mishap into a diplomatic triumph, no matter the cost. The fate of Earth depends on it, and maybe, just maybe, he'll find a way to bridge the gap between human and Ulian in the process. With renewed purpose, Christian sets off to begin his investigation, acutely aware that every moment counts in this high-stakes game of interstellar politics and impending invasion. The horizon hums around him, oblivious to the crucial role it now plays in humanity's future. Christian's footsteps echoed through the corridors of the horizon as he made his way to Captain Marcus Steele's private quarters. The residual moisture from the sprinkler incident clung to his uniform, a constant reminder of the crisis he had inadvertently sparked. The door to the captain's quarters slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Steele stood by the viewport, his silhouette stark against the backdrop of stars. He turned, his face a mask of controlled tension. "Dixon," he said, his voice low and grave, "what you've done today isn't just a mechanical failure. It's a potential catastrophe for all of humanity." Christian swallowed hard. "Sir, The captain held up a hand, silencing him. "Earth's planetary defense system is failing, Dixon. Without Ulium to power it, we're sitting ducks for the invasion that's coming. And now, thanks to your little sprinkler stunt, the Ulians are threatening to withdraw from negotiations." The weight of the situation crashed down on Christian. He had known the mission was important, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. Captain Steele's eyes bored into him. "Your new mission, effective immediately. Apologize to Ambassador Elva and the Ulian delegation. Then do whatever it takes to repair our diplomatic relations. Am I clear?" "Crystal clear, sir," Christian replied, straightening his posture. As he left the captain's quarters, Christian's mind raced. He needed to find Elva to make this right. His search led him to the ship's botanical garden, a lush oasis amid the sterile corridors of the horizon. He spotted her immediately. Elva stood among a cluster of earth plants, her otherworldly beauty a stark contrast to the familiar greenery. Her skin shimmered with a deep blue hue, her silver eyes fixed on a blooming orchid. Christian approached cautiously, his heart pounding. "Ambassador Elva?" She turned, her iridescent hair floating gently around her head, as if suspended in water. Her eyes narrowed slightly at the sight of him. I came to apologize," Christian said, his voice soft but steady. "The sprinkler malfunction was unacceptable, and I take full responsibility for the discomfort it caused you and your delegation." Elva regarded him silently for a moment, her skin shifting subtly in color. "You caused us great distress, human," she said, her melodic voice tinged with a hint of reproach. Christian nodded, his expression earnest. "I understand that now. I've learned that water can be harmful to Ulians. If I had known, I would have been even more careful during the maintenance check." To his surprise, Elva's skin warmed to a softer hue. "Your ignorance does not excuse the incident, but your willingness to learn and apologize is admirable." Encouraged, Christian pressed on. "I'd like to make it up to you, if you'll allow me. Perhaps I could give you a tour of the horizon, show you some of our technology, our culture." Elva's silver eyes sparkled with curiosity. "That would be acceptable." As they began their tour, Christian found himself captivated by Elva's grace and intelligence. She asked insightful questions about human technology, and he found himself explaining complex systems with an ease he hadn't known he possessed. Their path eventually led them to the engineering bay. As Christian demonstrated the ship's propulsion systems, something caught his eye. A small, unfamiliar device was attached to the sprinkler control panel. His heart rate quickened. Could this be evidence of sabotage? Carefully, he removed the device, pocketing it without drawing Elva's attention. He would need to investigate this later. The tour concluded on the observation deck. They stood side by side, gazing out at the star-filled expanse. Christian was acutely aware of Elva's presence, the subtle shimmer of her skin, the gentle movement of her hair. "Your ship is impressive, Christian," Elva said softly. "As are you." Christian turned to her, words forming on his lips when his communicator chirped urgently. "Dixon, report to the bridge immediately," came the captain's voice. With a reluctant apology to Elva, Christian rushed to the bridge. Captain Steele's face was grim as he delivered the news. Another incident had occurred, this time a malfunction in the artificial gravity system of the Ulian delegation's quarters. "This is no coincidence, Dixon," the captain said, his voice low. "I need you to investigate both incidents, discreetly. Your rapport with Ambassador Elva might be our best chance at uncovering the truth without further damaging our relations." As Christian left the bridge, his mind whirled with the implications. The device in his pocket seemed to burn with potential answers. He had to solve this mystery for the sake of the negotiations, for Earth's survival. And yet, as he made his way back to his quarters to begin his investigation, Christian couldn't shake the image of Elva from his mind. Her silver eyes, her shimmering skin, the gentle lilt of her voice. He was falling for her, he realized, even as he suspected that she might hold the key to unraveling this entire conspiracy. With a deep breath, Christian steeled himself for the challenge ahead. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and he was walking a tightrope between duty and desire. But one thing was certain. He would not fail, not with so much at stake. Christian entered his quarters, his mind still reeling from the weight of responsibility Captain Steele had placed on his shoulders. As the door slid shut behind him, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the small device he had discreetly removed from the sprinkler control panel. Under the harsh light of his desk lamp, Christian examined the object closely. Its sleek, otherworldly design confirmed his worst fears. This was no ordinary malfunction. The device pulsed with a faint, alien energy, its intricate circuitry far beyond anything in Earth's current technological arsenal. "Sabotage," Christian muttered, a chill running down his spine. He quickly accessed his terminal, fingers flying over the keyboard as he delved into the ship's security logs. Hours passed as Christian sifted through the data, searching for any anomalies that might point to the culprit. As the ship's night cycle began, Christian's eyes widened. He had found a pattern, a series of unauthorized access attempts in restricted areas, all linked to a single crew member, Jack Morris, a communications specialist who had joined the Horizon just before their diplomatic mission began. Christian dug deeper into Morris's service record, uncovering a troubling trend. The man's previous postings coincided with several unexplained malfunctions on other Earth vessels during critical alien negotiations. The coincidences were too numerous to ignore. Before Christian could pursue this lead further, his communicator chirped. Ambassador Elva's melodic voice filled his quarters. "Christian, I apologize for the late hour, but we are experiencing more difficulties with the gravity in our quarters. Could you assist us?" Christian's pulse quickened at the sound of her voice. "Of course, Ambassador. I'll be there right away." As he made his way to the Ulian delegation's quarters, Christian's mind raced. This was an opportunity to investigate the gravity systems up close while spending more time with Elva. He tried to quash the flutter of excitement in his chest, reminding himself of the gravity of the situation. The doors to the Ulian quarters slid open, revealing a scene of controlled chaos. Elva stood in the center of the room, her iridescent skin shimmering with a mix of frustration and relief at Christian's arrival. Several other Ulians floated awkwardly near the ceiling, their robes billowing around them. "Thank you for coming so quickly," Elva said, her silver eyes meeting Christian's. Christian nodded, moving to the gravity control panel. "Let's see what we can do to get everyone back on solid ground." As they worked together to stabilize the gravity, Christian found himself acutely aware of Elva's presence. Her graceful movements and the subtle shifts in her skin, color captivated him, making it difficult to focus on the task at hand. While adjusting a set of controls, Christian's hand brushed against Elva's. A jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them, and he looked up to find her gazing at him intently. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken tension. Clearing his throat, Christian turned his attention back to the panel. As he examined the inner workings of the gravity control system, his heart skipped a beat. There, nestled among the circuitry, was another device identical to the one he had found in the sprinkler system. Carefully, making sure Elva was distracted by assisting her fellow Ulians, Christian removed the device and slipped it into his pocket. His suspicions were confirmed. This was a coordinated sabotage attempt. With the gravity restored, Elva turned to Christian, her skin now glowing with a warm, inviting hue. "You have our gratitude, Christian. Your skills continue to impress me." Before Christian could respond, Elva stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. "Allow me to show you a traditional Ulian gesture of appreciation." Gently, she leaned forward and touched her forehead to his. The contact sent a wave of tingling energy through Christian's body, igniting every nerve ending. He closed his eyes, lost in the sensation and the subtle, intoxicating scent of Elva's skin. The moment was shattered by the blaring of alarms. Captain Steele's voice boomed through the ship's intercom system. "Attention all crew members. This is a Level 1 security alert. Report to your stations immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Christian reluctantly pulled away from Elva, his mind snapping back to the crisis at hand. "I have to go," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "We'll continue this conversation later." As he raced towards the engineering bay, Christian's mind whirled with conflicting thoughts. The escalating sabotage, his growing feelings for Elva, and the fate of two worlds hanging in the balance, it was almost too much to process. The scene that greeted him in engineering was one of barely controlled chaos. Warning lights flashed across every console, and the air thrummed with the sound of overtaxed systems. At the center of it all stood Chief Engineer Yuki Tanaka, barking orders to her frantic team. "Dixon," Tanaka called out as she spotted him. "The main power core is going haywire. We need to stabilize it before we lose containment." Christian rushed to a nearby console, his fingers flying over the controls as he assessed the situation. The power fluctuations were unlike anything he had ever seen, defying standard stabilization protocols. As he worked, Christian caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of his eye. Jack Morris had entered the engineering bay, ostensibly there to assist with communications, but something about the man's demeanor set Christian on edge. Keeping one eye on his console and the other on Morris, Christian discreetly tapped out a message on his communicator, alerting security to monitor the communications specialist's movements. The next few minutes were a blur of activity as Christian and the engineering team fought to bring the power core under control. Amidst the chaos, he noticed Morris edging towards a restricted control panel, his movements careful and deliberate. Without hesitation, Christian abandoned his station and lunged towards Morris. "Step away from that panel," he shouted, drawing the attention of nearby security officers. Morris turned, his face contorting with surprise and anger. In a flash, he reached for something in his pocket, but Christian was faster. He tackled Morris to the ground, their bodies colliding with the hard deck plating. As they grappled, a small device fell from Morris's grasp, skittering across the floor. Christian's eyes widened as he recognized it, identical to the sabotage tools he had discovered earlier. Security officers swarmed in, pulling the two men apart. As Morris was restrained, Christian scooped up the device, holding it up for all to see. "This is what's been causing our problems," he announced, his voice carrying over the din of the engineering bay. "And I bet we'll find more of them if we look." With the immediate threat neutralized, Christian turned his attention back to the power core. Working in tandem with Chief Tanaka and the rest of the team, they managed to stabilize the system, averting a catastrophic meltdown. But as the adrenaline of the moment faded, a new reality set in. The damage caused by the power fluctuations had severely impaired the ship's faster-than-light drive. The Horizon was stranded in deep space, vulnerable and alone. As security led Morris away, Captain Steele approached Christian, his face a mask of unwavering purpose. "Good work, Dixon," he said, his voice low. "But I have a feeling this is just the beginning. I need a full report on what you've discovered, and then we need to figure out how to get this ship moving again." Christian nodded, acutely aware of the monumental task ahead. As he prepared to brief the captain, his mind raced with the challenges they faced. Repairing the FTL drive, uncovering the full extent of the sabotage plot, and navigating his deepening relationship with Elva, all while the fate of Earth hung in the balance. With a deep breath, Christian steeled himself for what was to come. The real work was just beginning, and he was determined to see it through, no matter the consequences. Cost. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on Christian's shoulders as he followed Captain Steele to the briefing room. The ship's senior officers were already gathered around the large holographic display when Christian and the captain entered. Tense faces turned to them, expectant and wary. "Mr. Dixon," Captain Steele said, gesturing for Christian to take the floor, "please brief the team on your findings." Christian cleared his throat and stepped forward. He placed the sabotage devices on the table, their alien design gleaming under the harsh lights. These devices were found in both the sprinkler system and the gravity controls of the Ulian quarters. Christian began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "They're far beyond our current technology, designed to cause subtle malfunctions that could be mistaken for accidents." He tapped a few commands on the nearby console, bringing up Jack Morris's service record on the holographic display. "Our saboteur, Jack Morris, has a history of being present during similar accidents on other Earth vessels during critical negotiations with alien species." Captain Steele stepped in, his face grim. "Morris has confessed to working for the Zorax, a rival alien faction. Their goal is to prevent Earth from acquiring Ulium and strengthening our defenses." A murmur of concern rippled through the assembled officers. Chief Engineer Tanaka spoke up, her brow furrowed. "What about the damage to our FTL drive?" "That's our most pressing concern," Captain Steele replied. "We're stranded in an unfamiliar sector of space, vulnerable to attack. Mr. Dixon, I'm assigning you to lead the repair efforts. We need innovative solutions, and we need them fast." Christian nodded, his mind already racing through potential repair strategies. Understood, sir. I'll get started right away. As the meeting adjourned, Christian made his way to the engineering bay, preparing to organize repair teams. He was reviewing damage reports on his datapad when a familiar voice caught his attention. Christian, might I have a word? He looked up to see Ambassador Elva approaching, her silver eyes filled with concern. Christian's pulse quickened at the sight of her, memories of their last encounter flooding his mind. Of course, Ambassador, he replied, setting aside his datapad. Elva moved closer, her skin shimmering with a mix of colors that Christian was beginning to associate with worry and purpose. I've been briefed on the ship's situation, she said. The Ulian delegation wishes to offer our assistance in the repairs. Christian's eyebrows rose in surprise. That's very generous of you, Ambassador, but our technologies are quite different. I'm not sure how compatible they'd be. A smile played at the corners of Elva's mouth. You might be surprised, Christian. While our technologies differ, there are fundamental principles we share. I believe we can find a way to make them work together. The offer was unexpected, but Christian couldn't deny the potential benefits. Working alongside Elva would be challenging in more ways than one, but the fate of the ship hung in the balance. All right, he said, nodding. Let's see what we can do together. Over the next several hours, Christian and Elva worked side by side in the engineering bay. Their initial focus was on assessing the damage and identifying potential areas where Ulian technology could interface with Earth systems. As they worked, Christian found himself constantly aware of Elva's presence. The graceful movements of her hands as she manipulated holographic displays, the subtle shifts in her skin color reflecting her concentration and excitement, the melodic lilt of her voice as she explained Ulian technological concepts, all of it captivated him. Their efforts led them to a cramped maintenance shaft where a critical juncture of the FTL drive's power distribution system was located. Christian went in first, Elva following close behind. Careful, Christian warned as they navigated the tight space. It's a bit of a squeeze in here. As if to emphasize his point, the ship lurched slightly, causing Elva to lose her balance. She fell forward, pressing against Christian's back. The contact sent a jolt of electricity through him, and he heard Elva's sharp intake of breath. I apologize, Elva said, her voice breathy as she steadied herself. Christian turned to face her, their bodies mere inches apart in the confined space. No need to apologize, he replied, his voice low. He noticed that Elva's skin had taken on a deep, pulsating purple hue, a color he had never seen on her before. Elva's eyes met his, and for a moment the rest of the world seemed to fade away. Then, with visible effort, she refocused on the task at hand. This junction, she said, gesturing to the complex array of circuits and conduits before them. I believe we can integrate an Ulian power modulation device here. It should help stabilize the energy flow to your FTL drive. Christian nodded, forcing himself to concentrate on the technical challenge rather than the intoxicating proximity of Elva. As they worked together to integrate the Ulian device, their hands often brushed, each contact sending tingles through Christian's body. During a lull in their work, as they waited for a diagnostic to complete, Elva spoke softly. You know, Christian, Ulians form deep empathic bonds through physical proximity and shared experiences. Christian looked at her, curious. Is that so? Elva nodded, her skin rippling with shades of purple and blue. Yes, and I find myself forming such a connection with you. It's unprecedented between our species. The implications of her words hit Christian like a physical force. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, alarms blared throughout the ship. Captain Steele's voice came over the intercom, urgent and commanding. All hands to battle stations. Zorak's vessel detected on approach. This is not a drill. Christian and Elva exchanged a look of shared concern and grit. The race to repair the FTL drive had just become a matter of life and death. We need to finish this, Christian said, turning back to the half-completed integration of the Ulian device. Elva nodded, her hands already moving to assist. Together, she said, her eyes meeting his once more. As they worked feverishly to complete the repairs, the ship around them hummed with frantic activity. The fate of the Horizon, its crew, and the fragile new alliance between humans and Ulians now rested on their ability to merge two alien technologies in time to escape the approaching threat. Christian's fingers flew over the controls, guided by Elva's expert insights. The purple glow of her skin deepened, pulsing in time with the ship's alert klaxons. With each passing moment, the tension in the maintenance shaft grew, along with the undeniable connection between the human engineer and the Ulian ambassador. As they prepared to initiate the risky merger of Earth and Ulian technologies, Christian and Elva's eyes locked once more. In that moment, despite the impending danger, Christian felt a spark of hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Together. The perseverance in Elva's eyes mirrored Christian's own willpower as they turned back to the task at hand. With practiced efficiency, Christian initiated the integration sequence, while Elva monitored the energy fluctuations. Their movements were synchronized, each anticipating the other's needs without a word spoken. As Christian's fingers danced across the control panel, he felt a surge of energy coursing through the ship's systems. "It's working," he breathed, watching the power levels stabilize. Elva's skin pulsed with a vibrant blue. "The Ulian modulator is harmonizing with your FTL drive. Energy output is increasing." Their shared triumph was short-lived. The ship lurched violently, throwing them against the walls of the maintenance shaft. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with urgency. "All hands brace for impact. Zorak's vessel has opened fire." Christian and Elva exchanged a brief look of alarm before scrambling out of the shaft. The corridors were a flurry of activity as crew members rushed to their stations. Another blast rocked the ship, sending sparks flying from nearby consoles. "I need to get to the bridge," Christian said, steadying himself against a bulkhead. Elva nodded. "I'll monitor the FTL drive. Go!" As Christian sprinted towards the bridge, his mind raced with possibilities. The newly repaired drive was their best chance of escape, but it needed time to fully power up, time they didn't have. He burst onto the bridge, finding Captain Steele coordinating a frantic defense. The main view screen showed a sleek predatory vessel bearing down on them, energy weapons charged and ready. "Status report," Steele barked as Christian approached. "FTL drive is online, sir, but we need at least 10 minutes for a safe jump," Christian replied, his eyes darting over the tactical display. Steele's lips pursed. "We don't have 10 minutes, Dixon. We need options." Christian's gaze fell on the readout for the ship's Ulium stores. An idea sparked. "Captain, what if we could use the Ulium to create a temporary shield?" Steele's eyes widened. "Explain." "Ulium has unique properties that could deflect the Zorak's energy weapons. If we can reconfigure our emitters to project a Ulium-based field—" "Do it," Steele ordered without hesitation. Christian hurried to an auxiliary engineering station, fingers flying over the controls as he began repurposing the ship's Ulium samples. The bridge shuddered as another volley from the Zorak ship found its mark. "Shields down to 30%, the tactical officer reported. Multiple hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. As Christian worked, the bridge doors opened, admitting Ambassador Elva and several other Ulians. Their skin rippled with shades of willpower and concern. "Captain Steele," Elva said, her voice steady despite the chaos, "the Ulian delegation wishes to assist in the ship's defense." Steele turned, skepticism evident on his face. "With all due respect, Ambassador, this isn't the time for a diplomatic gesture." Elva's eyes flashed. "This is no gesture, Captain. My people possess abilities that may turn the tide of this battle." She explained the Ulian's capacity to project an empathic field, one that could disorient and confuse the Zorak's crew. Steele listened intently, his expression shifting from doubt to cautious hope. "Very well, Ambassador. Coordinate with my tactical officer. Let's see what your people can do." As the Ulians took up positions around the bridge, Christian finished his modifications. "Ulium, shield ready, Captain." "Activate it now." Christian engaged the improvised defense system. A shimmering, opalescent field materialized around the horizon, just as the Zoraks fired another barrage. The energy weapons impacted the shield, dispersing in a dazzling display of light. "Direct hit," the tactical officer exclaimed. "Minimal damage sustained. The shield is holding." A collective cheer went up on the bridge, but Christian knew they weren't out of danger yet. The Ulium shield wouldn't last forever, and the Zorax were already adjusting their attack patterns. As he watched the tactical display, Christian noticed something odd about the ship's damaged gravity systems. An idea began to form, wild and risky, but potentially game-changing. "Captain," he said, turning to Steele, "I think I can use our damaged gravity systems to create a localized anomaly. It could disrupt their targeting systems, maybe even their weapons." Steele's eyebrows shot up. "That sounds incredibly dangerous, Dixon." "It is, sir, but so is our current situation." The captain considered for a moment, then nodded. "Do it. But be careful. We can't afford to lose our own systems in the process." As Christian began the complex calculations needed to generate the gravity anomaly safely, he noticed the Ulians entering a trance-like state. Their skin rippled with hypnotic patterns, and a subtle vibration filled the air. The tactical display showed the Zorax ship's movements becoming erratic. Their weapon fire grew less precise, many shots missing the horizon entirely. "It's working," Elva said, her voice strained with effort. "But we can't maintain this indefinitely." Christian redoubled his efforts, acutely aware of the mounting pressure. The ship groaned around them, systems pushed to their limits. With a final command sequence, he activated the gravity weapon. Space itself seemed to warp between the two ships. The Zorax vessel shuddered, its sleek form distorting as it was caught in the gravitational flux. "Now, Captain!" Christian shouted. Steele didn't hesitate. "All weapons, fire!" The horizon unleashed its remaining arsenal, each shot finding its mark on the disoriented Zorax ship. Explosions bloomed across its hull, and its weapon fire ceased. "They're retreating," the tactical officer announced, disbelief coloring his voice. As the Zorax ship limped away, a collective exhale swept through the bridge. The immediate danger had passed, but the horizon bore the scars of battle. Damage reports flooded in from all decks, even as repair crews scrambled to contain the worst of it. Christian's eyes met Elva's across the bridge. In that moment, the full weight of their shared experience crashed over them. Without a word, they moved towards each other, drawn by a force neither fully understood. They were inches apart when Captain Steele's voice cut through the moment. "Senior staff, report to the conference room immediately. We need to decide our next move." As they made their way to the meeting, Christian and Elva walked close, their hands brushing occasionally. The tension between them was palpable, a mix of adrenaline, relief, and something deeper, more primal. The conference room buzzed with nervous energy as the ship's leadership gathered. Captain Steele stood at the head of the table, his face etched with the weight of command. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "we've won this battle, but we're far from safe. We need to decide, do we continue our mission or return to Earth with what we've learned about the Zorax threat?" Christian looked at Elva, her silver eyes reflecting the gravity of the choice before them. As the discussion began in earnest, he knew that whatever path they chose, nothing would ever be the same again. The tension in the conference room was palpable as Captain Steele concluded the meeting. "We'll continue our mission," he announced, his voice firm, "but we need to address our vulnerabilities first. Dixon, I want you to oversee the integration of Ulian technology into our systems. Ambassador Elva, your assistance will be invaluable." Christian nodded, acutely aware of Elva's presence beside him. As the room emptied, Steele pulled them aside. "I'm counting on you two to make this work. Our survival may depend on it." Over the next few days, the horizon buzzed with activity. Repair crews worked tirelessly to mend the damage from the Zorax attack, while Christian and Elva led the effort to enhance the ship's defenses with Ulian tech. They spent long hours together in engineering, their collaborative work drawing them closer. Christian found himself captivated by the way Elva's skin shimmered with different hues as she concentrated, her silver eyes bright with intelligence. During a break, Elva's hand brushed against his as she reached for a tool. The contact sent a jolt through Christian's body, and he saw a flicker of purple ripple across Elva's skin. "I apologize," she said softly. "My empathic abilities sometimes react strongly to you." Christian swallowed hard. "There's no need to apologize. I feel it too." Their eyes met, and for a moment the rest of the ship faded away. The spell was broken by the arrival of Ensign Rodriguez, who eyed them curiously before delivering a status report. As word of their closeness spread, Christian noticed varied reactions from the crew. Some, like Rodriguez, seemed amused or supportive. Others, particularly among the diplomatic staff, appeared concerned. One evening, as they worked late in a deserted maintenance bay, Christian broached the subject. "Elva, I can't help but notice this connection. It's more than just professional, isn't it?" Elva's skin pulsed with a deep blue. "It is," she admitted. "I've never experienced anything like this with a non-alien. It's intense." Christian stepped closer, drawn by an irresistible pull. "Where do we go from here?" Before Elva could respond, an alert chimed on Christian's datapad. "Huh, that's odd. There's an energy fluctuation in section C7. Want to check it out?" They made their way to the source of the anomaly, a seemingly blank wall panel. Christian ran his scanner over the surface, frowning. "There's definitely something behind here." With Elva's help, they managed to pry open the panel, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, nestled among a tangle of wires, sat a cluster of gleaming data crystals. "Zorax tech," Elva breathed, her skin flickering with alarm. They immediately reported their find to Captain Steele, who called an emergency meeting of the senior staff. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, the ship's security chief, was tasked with leading the investigation into the crystal's contents. As the meeting adjourned, Steele's voice came over the intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. We're detecting unusual energy readings from an uncharted spatial anomaly. Prepare for approach." On the bridge, the main view screen displayed a shimmering distortion in space. As they drew closer, the anomaly purposed into a massive structure, an ancient space station, its architecture unlike anything in human or alien records. "Incredible," Elva murmured, her eyes wide with wonder. Steele turned to them. "Dixon, Ambassador, I want you both on the away team. Your combined expertise could be crucial." In the shuttle bay, Christian and Elva donned their EVA suits, the confined space of the preparation area amplifying the tension between them. As Christian helped Elva adjust her helmet, their faces inches apart, he felt an almost overwhelming urge to close the distance. The away team boarded the station, its vast corridors eerily silent. Strange symbols adorned the walls, pulsing with a faint internal light. As they explored, Christian and Elva found themselves separated from the others, drawn into a chamber that seemed to respond to their presence. The room hummed to life around them, holographic displays flickering into existence. Christian gasped as he felt a gentle pressure in his mind, a presence that wasn't his own. "Elva," he whispered, "are you feeling this?" She nodded, her eyes wide behind her helmet visor. "It's interfacing with our minds, Christian. I think it's using our empathic connection as a conduit." The holograms coalesced into scenes of alien races working together, sharing knowledge, building wonders. Christian and Elva watched in awe as the projections showed intimate moments between members of different species. Tender embraces, passionate kisses, the joining of bodies both familiar and strange. As the images faded, Christian became acutely aware of Elva's proximity. Their enhanced empathic link thrummed with shared emotion, wonder, excitement, and a deep primal attraction. Without conscious thought, they moved together. Their helmet visors clinked as they pressed close, the barriers of their suits a frustrating impediment. Christian's hand found Elva's, their fingers intertwining as they shared a moment of profound connection. The spell was broken by a crackle of static in their comms. "Dixon, Ambassador, report your status," came Captain Steele's voice. As they made their way back to the rest of the team, Christian and Elva struggled to process what they'd experienced. They arrived just as Lieutenant Chen made a startling announcement. "Captain, we've found something incredible," Chen said, gesturing to a vast chamber filled with glowing crystals. "It's Ulium, sir, enough to power Earth's defenses for decades. And there's more, technology that could neutralize the Zorax threat entirely." The implications were staggering. As the away team returned to the horizon with samples and data, the atmosphere was electric with possibility. Captain Steele ordered the ship to maintain position near the station while they analyzed their findings. In the privacy of his quarters that night, Christian found himself unable to sleep. His mind raced with the day's discoveries, both scientific and personal. A chime at his door startled him from his thoughts. Elva stood in the corridor, her silver eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his breath catch. "We need to talk," she said softly. As she entered his quarters, Christian knew that whatever came next would change everything. For them, for the horizon, and perhaps for the entire galaxy. Galaxy. The door slid shut behind Elva as she entered Christian's quarters. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension, their recent shared experiences on the alien station hanging heavy in the room. "Christian," Elva began, her voice soft but firm, "what we experienced on that station, it was unlike anything I've ever known." Christian nodded, running a hand through his hair. "I know. It's like it opened up something between us, something I can't fully explain." Before they could delve deeper into their connection, Christian's comm unit chimed. Captain Steele's voice filled the room. "Senior staff, report to the main lab immediately. We've made a breakthrough with the alien technology." Exchanging a look that spoke volumes, Christian and Elva hurried to the lab. They found it buzzing with activity, scientists and engineers huddled around holographic displays of the alien artifacts. Dr. Yvonne Chen, the ship's lead xenotechnologist, greeted them with hardly restrained excitement. "We've cracked it," she announced, gesturing to a complex schematic. "This alien tech, it's not just advanced, it's revolutionary. We believe we can integrate it into our systems to create a shield capable of repelling even the most powerful Zorax weapons." Captain Steele turned to Christian. "Dixon, I want you to lead the integration team. Work with Ambassador Elva and our Ullian guests. Your combined expertise will be crucial." Over the next several days, Christian and Elva threw themselves into the work. The integration process was grueling, requiring them to merge human, Ullian, and alien technologies in ways never before attempted. As they worked side by side in engineering, Christian found himself hyper-aware of Elva's presence. Her skin shimmered with concentration, patterns of light dancing across her surface as she manipulated complex energy fields. "Try routing the quantum flux through the auxiliary power grid," Christian suggested, leaning close to examine a holographic readout. Elva nodded, her fingers dancing over the controls. As she worked, her arm brushed against Christian's, sending a jolt of electricity through both of them. For a moment, their minds seemed to merge, thoughts and emotions flowing freely between them. They jerked apart, startled by the intensity of the connection. Before they could address it, Lieutenant Sarah Chen burst into the room. "We've done it," she announced breathlessly. "We've decrypted the Zorax data crystals." In the briefing room, Chen laid out the shocking truth. "The Zorax aren't working alone," she explained, her face grim. "They're part of a larger coalition of races who see the Human-Ullian alliance as a threat to their power in the galaxy." Captain Steele's eyes hardened as he absorbed the implications. "Then we need to accelerate our plans. We'll use the alien station as a base to strengthen our alliance and develop our defenses." The next weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Shuttles ferried personnel and equipment between the horizon and the alien station. Christian and Elva found themselves at the heart of the operation, overseeing the transfer of the new shield technology. As they prepared for another shuttle run, Christian couldn't shake a sense of unease. "Something feels off about this one," he muttered, running a final check on the shuttle's systems. Elva placed a hand on his arm, her touch sending ripples of warmth through him. "I sense it too," she said softly. "But we need to make this run." They were halfway to the station when alarms blared through the shuttle. "We're losing power to the main engines," Christian shouted, hands flying over the controls. "There's an asteroid field ahead," Elva warned, her skin pulsing with alarm. Christian gritted his teeth, wrestling with the controls. "Hang on, we're going in for an emergency landing." The shuttle skidded across the asteroid's surface, coming to a jarring halt. As the dust settled, Christian and Elva took stock of their situation. "Comms are down," Christian reported grimly, "and we're losing oxygen. Fast." Elva's eyes met his, fear and perseverance mingling in their silver depths. "We need to boost our distress signal," she said. "I have an idea, but it will require both of us." As they worked to modify the shuttle's systems, their bodies pressed close in the confined space, Christian became acutely aware of Elva's presence. Her scent, alien yet intoxicating, filled his senses. Their hands brushed as they worked, each contact sending sparks of connection between them. "Christian," Elva said softly, her skin rippling with deep blue hues. "If we don't make it out of this." He turned to face her, their faces inches apart. "We will," he assured her, his voice husky with emotion. "But if we don't, I need you to know." Their lips met in a searing kiss, months of pent-up tension exploding between them. For a moment, the universe narrowed to just the two of them, their minds and bodies intertwining in a way that defied the boundaries of their species. They broke apart, breathless, as a warning light flashed on the console. "Oxygen levels critical," the computer announced dispassionately. With renewed urgency, they turned back to their work. Christian's human ingenuity combined with Elva's Ulian empathic abilities in ways neither fully understood. As they activated their modified distress beacon, a surge of energy pulsed outward, far more powerful than they had anticipated. On the bridge of the horizon, Captain Steele's eyes widened as he saw the energy spike on the long-range sensors. "That's them," he declared. "Prepare a rescue team immediately." But before the rescue could launch, another alert sounded. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "we're detecting multiple Zorax ships on an intercept course." Steele's face hardened as he weighed his options. "Launch the rescue team," he ordered, "and prepare the new shield technology. We're about to put it to the test." As the rescue shuttle raced towards the asteroid, Christian and Elva clung to each other in the failing atmosphere of their damaged craft. Their eyes met, a universe of unspoken words passing between them. In the distance, the sleek forms of Zorax warships appeared, weapons primed and ready to strike. The horizon stood between them and the vulnerable shuttles, its newly enhanced shields glowing with untested power. The stage was set for a battle that would determine not just their fate, but the future of human-Ulian relations and the balance of power in the galaxy. The battle erupted with sudden ferocity. Zorax warships materialized from the void, their weapons primed and blazing. The horizon stood its ground, its newly enhanced shields glowing with untested power. "Shields at maximum," Captain Steele barked. "All hands, battle stations." The rescue shuttle carrying Christian and Elva weaved through the barrage of enemy fire, its pilot executing a series of daring maneuvers. As they approached the horizon, a Zorax cruiser locked onto them. "Evasive action!" Christian shouted, gripping Elva's hand tightly. The shuttle lurched, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy bolts. With a final burst of speed, it slipped through the horizon's shield perimeter and into the safety of the hangar bay. Christian and Elva stumbled out of the shuttle, still reeling from their near-death experience on the asteroid. Captain Steele's voice crackled over the ship-wide comm system. "Dixon, Ambassador, report to the bridge immediately." They raced through the corridors, the ship shuddering under enemy fire. Crew members rushed past, faces set with unwavering willpower. On the bridge, chaos reigned. Tactical displays flickered with the positions of Zorax ships, while damage reports scrolled across auxiliary screens. "Status report," Steele demanded as Christian and Elva arrived. Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced across her console. "The new shield technology is holding, sir, but the Zorax are adapting their attack patterns. We need to coordinate with the alien station to maximize our defensive capabilities." Steele turned to Christian and Elva. "I need you two on that station. Monitor the shield generator and find a way to boost its output. We'll need every advantage we can get." A shuttle trip later, Christian and Elva found themselves deep within the alien station's control center. Holographic displays surrounded them, pulsing with data streams they were only beginning to decipher. "Look at these energy readings," Christian marveled, gesturing to a fluctuating graph. "If we can stabilize the output, we might be able to create an impenetrable defense grid." Elva's skin rippled with concentration as she interfaced with the alien systems. "I think I can help regulate the energy flow. My species has a natural affinity for energy manipulation." As they worked, their movements became a synchronized dance. Christian's engineering expertise merged seamlessly with Elva's intuitive grasp of the alien technology. Their earlier kiss lingered in both their minds, adding an electric undercurrent to their interactions. Back on the horizon, Lieutenant Chen made a breakthrough. Captain, I've identified a weakness in the Zorax formation. If we can use the station's sensor array to target this vulnerability, we might be able to turn the tide. Steele nodded grimly. Make it happen, Lieutenant. Coordinate with Dixon and the ambassador. The battle intensified. The horizon unleashed a barrage of weapons fire, guided by Chen's tactical analysis. Simultaneously, the alien station activated its defensive systems, sending pulses of energy that disrupted Zorax shields and communications. In the control center, Christian noticed a troubling trend in the shield generator's output. Elva, the system's overheating. We need to stabilize it before the shields fail completely. Elva's eyes widened as she processed the data. I have an idea, but it's risky. I can use my body's natural energy absorption abilities to help regulate the output, but we'll need to be in direct contact with the generator. Christian hesitated for a split second before nodding. Let's do it. They positioned themselves on either side of the pulsing shield generator. As Elva placed her hands on the device, her skin began to glow with absorbed energy. Christian worked the controls, his body pressed close to hers in the confined space. Their proximity ignited the empathic bond between them. Thoughts and emotions flowed freely, creating a feedback loop that enhanced their coordination. Christian found himself anticipating Elva's needs before she voiced them, adjusting power levels and rerouting energy with intuitive precision. The shields stabilized, their strength redoubling under the combined efforts of human and alien. On the bridge of the horizon, Steele watched in amazement as the Zorax weapons fire dissipated harmlessly against the reinforced barrier. Now's our chance, he ordered. All weapons, fire at will. The horizon unleashed its full arsenal, targeting the weak points Chen had identified. Zorax ships exploded in brilliant flares of light, their formation crumbling under the onslaught. Victory seemed within reach when alarms blared through the alien station. Christian's eyes widened as he interpreted the readings. They're targeting the station's power core. If it goes, it'll take us and the horizon with it. Steele's voice crackled over the comm. Evacuation order for all personnel on the station. Get to the escape pods immediately. Christian grabbed Elva's hand, pulling her away from the shield generator. We need to move now. They raced through the station's corridors, the structure groaning and shuddering around them. Explosions rocked the deck beneath their feet, sending them stumbling against each other. Rounding a corner, they found their path blocked by a sealed door, its locking mechanism fused by battle damage. Christian smacked his palm against the unyielding metal. No! Elva placed a hand on his arm, her touch calming him instantly. Together, she said softly. They positioned themselves on either side of the door, fingers seeking purchase in the narrow gap. As one they pulled, muscles straining with the effort. Slowly, agonizingly, the door began to slide open. With a final heave, they created an opening large enough to squeeze through. Christian ushered Elva ahead of him, following close behind as they sprinted toward the last remaining escape pod. They launched just as a massive explosion tore through the station's core. The shockwave caught their pod, sending it spinning out of control. Emergency systems failed one by one as they tumbled through space. In the darkness of the failing pod, Christian and Elva found themselves pressed together, their breath mingling in the rapidly thinning air. The possibility of imminent death stripped away their final barriers. Elva, Christian whispered, his voice hoarse. If this is it, I need you to know. She silenced him with a kiss, fierce and desperate. Their bodies intertwined, differences in biology forgotten as they sought comfort in each other's embrace. As they drifted in the void, the horizon raced to locate their pod, its sensors scanning frantically for signs of life. The fate of two individuals, and perhaps the future of human-alien relations, hung in the balance, a tiny speck of hope against the vast backdrop of space. Space. The horizon burst into view, its sleek form a beacon of hope against the starry backdrop. The ship's sensors locked onto the tiny escape pod, guiding it safely into the hangar bay. As the pod's hatch hissed open, medical teams swarmed in. Christian and Elva emerged, disoriented but alive. Medics immediately began assessing their condition, scanning for injuries and administering oxygen. Get them to sickbay, a medic ordered, her voice firm but kind. Christian felt a wave of relief wash over him as he was guided towards the medical bay. He glanced at Elva, her skin pulsing with muted colors that betrayed her exhaustion. Their eyes met, and a spark of understanding passed between them. In sickbay, they were separated for individual examinations. Christian winced as a regenerator passed over his bruised ribs. Across the room, he could see Elva surrounded by a team of curious medical staff, their instruments struggling to make sense of her alien physiology. Captain Steele strode in, his face a mask of controlled tension. "Dixon, Ambassador, I'm glad to see you're both alive. We need you in the briefing room as soon as you're cleared." Christian nodded, suppressing a groan as he sat up. "Yes, sir. What's our status?" Steele's face hardened. "The Zorax are in retreat, but we're not letting them off that easy. We're in pursuit, hoping to gather intel on their next move." As soon as they were cleared by medical, Christian and Elva found themselves in the briefing room. The air was thick with tension as they recounted their experiences on the alien station. "The technology there was unlike anything I've ever seen," Christian explained, his eyes bright with excitement despite his fatigue. "If we can integrate even a fraction of it into our systems, it could change everything." Elva nodded, her skin rippling with agreement. "The station's systems seem to respond to my empathic abilities in ways I don't fully understand. There's so much potential there." As they spoke, a new face entered the room. A woman with sharp features and piercing eyes approached, her gaze fixed intently on Christian and Elva. "Fascinating," she murmured. "I'm Dr. Lyra Vex, the ship's xenobiologist. I couldn't help but notice some unusual readings from your bioscans. Would you be willing to undergo some additional tests?" Before they could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over the comm system. "Captain, we've detected a massive energy surge from the lead Zorax vessel. They're opening some kind of spatial rift." Steele sprang into action. "All hands to battle stations. Helm, prepare to—" His orders were cut short as the view screen flared with blinding light. When it faded, the Zorax fleet had vanished, leaving behind only the fading remnants of the spatial anomaly. "Hold position," Steele commanded, his voice tight with frustration. "We can't risk following them blind." As the immediate crisis passed, attention turned back to Christian and Elva. Dr. Vex approached them, her eyes gleaming with scientific curiosity. "Now, about those tests," she said, gesturing towards the door. "I believe what's happening between you two could be groundbreaking for interspecies relations." Christian and Elva exchanged glances, a mix of excitement and apprehension passing between them. As they followed Dr. Vex to her lab, Christian couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental, a discovery that could change not only their lives, but the future of human-alien relations. Behind them, the crew of the Horizon bustled with activity, analyzing data from the battle and preparing for whatever challenges lay ahead. The ship hung suspended in space, a bastion of grit in the face of the unknown, ready to face whatever the stars might throw their way. Way at them. The ship hummed with renewed purpose as Captain Steele's voice echoed through the comm system. "All hands, this is the captain. We've weathered a storm, but our work is far from done. We're initiating emergency repairs and reaching out to our allies. Stay alert and ready for anything." Christian's mind raced as he made his way to engineering. The alien technology they'd salvaged from the station held immense potential, but integrating it into the Horizon's systems would be a monumental task. As he entered the bustling engine room, he was greeted by a sea of determined faces. "All right, team," he called out. "We've got a propulsion system to fix and not much time to do it. Let's make it happen." Hours blurred together as Christian led the engineering crew in their frantic work. They spliced alien circuitry into human systems, recalibrated power relays, and pushed the ship's technology to its limits. Christian felt a surge of pride as he watched his team adapt and innovate on the fly. Suddenly, a sharp pain lanced through Christian's head. He stumbled, catching himself on a nearby console. The room spun, and for a moment he could have sworn he felt Elva's presence beside him, though she was nowhere to be seen. "Dixon, you all right?" One of his engineers approached, concern etched on her face. Christian shook his head, trying to clear the fog. "I'm fine. Just a headache. Let's keep moving. But the disorientation persisted, ebbing and flowing like a tide. Christian pushed through, focusing on the task at hand, even as worry gnawed at the back of his mind. In the medical bay, Elva underwent her own battery of tests. Dr. Lyra Vex frowned at her instruments, tapping commands into her console with growing urgency. "Ambassador," she said, her voice carefully neutral, "I'm detecting some unusual changes in your neural patterns. Have you experienced any odd sensations lately? Headaches, disorientation, heightened empathic abilities?" Elva's skin rippled with a mix of concern and curiosity. "Yes, actually. I've been feeling more connected to Christian, almost as if I can sense his thoughts at times." Dr. Vex's eyes widened. "Fascinating and concerning. I think we need to run some more comprehensive tests on both of you." As Christian and Elva underwent a barrage of scans and examinations, the Horizon received an unexpected response to their distress call. The Ullian science vessel, Nebula Seeker, glided into view, its sleek form a stark contrast to the battle-scarred Horizon. Captain Zara Voss, an imposing Ullian with deep blue skin, stood on the bridge of the Horizon, her gaze sweeping over the human crew. "Captain Steele, we picked up your distress signal. We're here to offer our assistance." Steele nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Captain Voss. We could certainly use the help with repairs and resources." As Ullian crew members began to board the Horizon, a palpable tension filled the air. Humans and Ullians worked side by side, their movements cautious and guarded. The unease was broken only by the occasional burst of surprise cooperation when a particularly clever solution was found. In the medical bay, Dr. Vex delivered her findings to Christian, Elva, and both captains. The neural synchronization between Mr. Dixon and Ambassador Elva is progressing at an alarming rate. Their cognitive abilities are enhancing, but there's a risk of blending, loss of individual identity. Captain Voss's skin pulsed with concern. "We have specialists aboard the Nebula Seeker who might be able to help. There's a procedure we can attempt, using a combination of our biotechnology and the alien tech you've salvaged." Christian and Elva exchanged glances, a wordless communication passing between them. Christian spoke for both of them. "What are the risks?" Dr. Vex's expression was grave. "The procedure could stabilize your condition, potentially saving your lives, but it could also alter your genetic makeup permanently. You'd be the first of your kind, a human-Ullian hybrid." As they grappled with this life-altering decision, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up unusual energy readings from a nearby asteroid field. The signature matches the Zorax spatial rift technology." Captain Steele's eyes hardened. A hidden outpost, maybe even a staging area for their next attack. The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as Steele weighed his options. Time was running out for Christian and Elva, but the potential Zorax threat couldn't be ignored. Finally, Steele made his decision. "Lieutenant Chen, assemble a team. Take a shuttle and investigate that asteroid field. Use the enhanced sensors we developed from the alien tech. The rest of us will focus on the medical procedure and repairs." As Chen's team prepared for their mission, Christian and Elva were escorted to a makeshift medical chamber. Ullian and human medical staff worked in concert, setting up a dizzying array of equipment. Christian reached out, taking Elva's hand. Her skin shimmered with a mix of fear and persistence. "Whatever happens," he said softly, "we're in this together." As the procedure began, Christian and Elva's world exploded into a kaleidoscope of sensation. Their bodies burned and froze, pulsed and contracted. In their minds, barriers crumbled and reformed. Suddenly, they weren't alone. The consciousness of every crew member aboard both ships flooded into their shared mind space. For one breathtaking moment, human and Ullian alike experienced perfect understanding, their differences and similarities laid bare. Meanwhile, Chen's shuttle crept through the asteroid field, its enhanced sensors probing the void. Suddenly, a flicker. A distortion in space revealed the outline of a hidden Zorax facility. "Jackpot," Chen whispered, her fingers flying over the controls as she began to gather intelligence. But their victory was short-lived. Alarms blared as the shuttle's presence was detected. "Evasive maneuvers," Chen barked. The shuttle ducked and weaved through the asteroid field, Zorax fighters in hot pursuit. Their only hope lay in the intelligence they'd gathered, and in reaching the horizon before they were blown out of the sky. Back on the ship, Christian and Elva emerged from the procedure, changed in ways they were only beginning to understand. As they struggled to process their new reality, the ship thrummed to life beneath them. The propulsion system, bolstered by alien tech and the combined efforts of human and Ulian engineers, was finally back online. Captain Steele's voice rang out over the comm system. "All hands, prepare for immediate departure. We've got a warning to deliver, and not much time to do it in." As the Horizon and Nebula Seeker prepared to jump to warp, Christian and Elva stood together on the observation deck. Their future, and the future of human-Ulian relations, was uncertain. But as they gazed out at the stars, they knew one thing for certain. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Together, united in their drive to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Horizon and Nebula Seeker erupted into motion, their engines flaring to life as they departed from their previous location. The stars outside the observation deck window blurred into streaks of light as both ships jumped to warp, racing against time to warn Earth and the Ulian homeworld about the impending Zorax attack. Christian and Elva made their way to the bridge, their steps slightly unsteady as they adjusted to their altered physiology. As they entered, they were struck by a wave of emotions emanating from the crew, a mix of anxiety, persistence, and hope that seemed to pulse through the air like a living thing. Captain Steele turned to them, his face etched with concern. "How are you both holding up?" Christian nodded, his voice steady despite the strange sensations coursing through his body. "We're managing, sir. It's different, but we're adapting." Elva's skin rippled in agreement. "Our empathic abilities seem to have been greatly enhanced. We can sense the emotions of everyone on board, both ships." Steele's eyebrows rose. "That could prove useful. We're organizing a joint tactical meeting with Captain Voss. Your input would be invaluable." The tactical meeting took place in the Horizon's main conference room, with Captain Voss and her senior staff joining via holographic projection. As the discussion unfolded, Christian and Elva found themselves acting as a bridge between the two crews, their enhanced empathy allowing them to sense the underlying concerns and motivations of both humans and Ulians. "The Zorax will likely target our shipyards first," one of the Ulian officers stated, his skin pulsing with worry. Christian felt a flicker of disagreement from Captain Steele before he even spoke. "With respect, I believe they'll aim for our command and control centers, take out our ability to coordinate a defense." Elva stepped in, her voice calm. "Both strategies are valid, and both reflect the primary concerns of our respective species. The Zorax may well attempt both simultaneously." As the meeting progressed, Christian and Elva's insights helped smooth over potential disagreements, facilitating a more cooperative and effective planning session. By the time it concluded, a comprehensive defense strategy had been outlined. The journey continued, pushing the limits of both ships' warp capabilities. As they approached the edge of known space, an ominous sight filled the view screen, a massive, swirling nebula that pulsed with strange energies. Lieutenant Chen frowned at her console. "Sir, long-range communications and sensors are being affected by the nebula's interference." Captain Steele's face hardened. "Options? We could go around," Chen suggested, "but it would add significant time to our journey." "Time we don't have," Steele muttered. He turned to Captain Voss's hologram. "Your thoughts, Captain?" The Ulian captain's skin rippled with purpose. "We proceed through the nebula. The risk is necessary given the urgency of our mission." Steele nodded in agreement. "Christian, Elva, I want you two monitoring our systems as we pass through. Your unique abilities might give us an edge in navigating this anomaly." As the ships entered the nebula, Christian and Elva took their positions at auxiliary stations on the bridge. The view screen filled with swirling clouds of gas and energy, occasional flashes of light illuminating the cosmic storm around them. Suddenly, Christian felt a jolt of alarm from Elva. At the same moment, his own senses tingled with a strange awareness. "Captain," he called out, "there's an energy surge approaching on the port side." "Evasive maneuvers," Steele barked, just as a tendril of energy lashed out from the nebula, narrowly missing the horizon. For the next hour, Christian and Elva worked in perfect synchronization, their enhanced senses allowing them to predict and avoid the nebula's dangerous energy discharges. The strain of maintaining this heightened awareness was evident on their faces, beads of sweat forming on their brows. Midway through the nebula, both ships began experiencing power fluctuations. Alarms blared as systems started to fail. "Dixon, get down to engineering," Steele ordered. "We need that power core stabilized." Christian sprinted to the engine room, his mind already racing with potential solutions. As he worked to stabilize the core, he could feel Elva's presence in his mind, coordinating with the Nebula Seeker to synchronize their shields. The procedure was grueling, pushing both Christian and Elva to their limits, but their efforts paid off. A shimmering bubble of energy formed around both ships, protecting them from the nebula's volatile environment. As they neared the edge of the nebula, a collective sigh of relief passed through both crews. But the moment of reprieve was short-lived. As soon as they cleared the cosmic cloud, long-range sensors reactivated, revealing a chilling sight. "Captain," Chen's voice was tight with tension, "sensors are detecting a massive Zorax fleet assembling in a nearby star system. It's far larger than we anticipated." The bridge fell silent as the implication sank in. Steele's face hardened as he realized the grim truth. They might not have enough time to reach Earth and the Ullian homeworld before the Zorax launched their attack. In that moment of crisis, Christian stepped forward, his eyes bright with a dangerous idea. "Captain, I think I have a solution, but it's risky, and Elva and I would need your approval to attempt it." As Christian outlined his plan to create a temporary subspace communication channel, using himself and Elva as living conduits, the atmosphere on the bridge grew tense. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, and the price of failure was unthinkable. Steele looked from Christian to Elva, his expression grave. "You understand the risks?" They nodded in unison, their perseverance palpable. "Very well," Steele said, his voice heavy with the weight of command. "Make it happen." As the medical and engineering teams rushed to prepare for the unprecedented procedure, Christian and Elva shared a quiet moment in the makeshift chamber that would serve as their link to the subspace network. "Ready?" Christian asked, reaching out to take Elva's hand. Her skin shimmered with a mix of fear and persistence as she nodded. "Together," she replied, her voice steady. As the procedure began, their world exploded into a cosmos of sensation and information. Their consciousness expanded beyond the confines of their bodies, reaching across the vast expanse of space. In that moment, they were no longer simply human and Ullian. They were a bridge between worlds, carrying a message that would determine the fate of both their species. The warning raced across light years, a desperate plea carried on waves of subspace energy. Earth and the Ullian homeworld received the message simultaneously, a cascade of information about the Zorax threat flooding their communication networks. As the transmission concluded, Christian and Elva's bodies convulsed, their vital signs fluctuating wildly. They collapsed to the floor as alarms blared, medical teams rushing to their aid. While Dr. Vex and her team fought to stabilize Christian and Elva, the Horizon and Nebula Seeker emerged from the nebula, their sensors confirming the terrifying reality of the Zorax fleet mobilizing nearby. On the bridge, Captain Steele and Captain Voss exchanged grim looks. Their worlds had been warned, but the battle was nowhere near the end. A decision had to be made: retreat to their homeworlds, or stand and fight to buy more time. As the two captains weighed their options, the fate of Christian and Elva hung in the balance, their sacrificial act a testament to the newfound unity between humans and Ullians. The crew of both ships held their breath, waiting for news from the medical bay and preparing for the battle to come. Suddenly, Dr. Vex's voice crackled over the intercom, breaking the tense silence on the bridge. "Captain Steele, I need you in the medical bay immediately. We've had a breakthrough." Steele exchanged a quick glance with Captain Voss's hologram before hurrying to the medical bay. As he entered, he found Dr. Vex hovering over Christian and Elva, her face a mixture of excitement and concern. "What's the situation, Doctor?" Steele asked, his eyes darting between the two patients. Dr. Vex's fingers flew over her medical tablet as she spoke. "We've managed to stabilize their conditions, sir, but there's more. Their neural patterns have synchronized in a way I've never seen before. As if on cue, Christian's eyes fluttered open, followed closely by Elva's. They sat up in perfect unison, their movements mirroring each other with uncanny precision. "Captain?" They spoke simultaneously, their voices overlapping in an eerie harmony. "We're ready for duty." Steele took a step back, his brow furrowed. "Christian? Elva? Are you, both of you, all right?" Christian's lips moved, but it was Elva's voice that emerged. "We are, Captain. More than all right. We can share consciousness now. Switch control of our bodies at will." To demonstrate, Elva raised her hand, but it was Christian's voice that continued. "It's like we're two minds and two bodies, but we can operate as one when needed." Steele's mind raced with the tactical implications of this development. "Can you still function independently?" They nodded, this time speaking separately but in perfect sync. "Yes, but we can also work as a single unit when the situation calls for it." The captain's comm badge chirped, interrupting the moment. "Steele here." "Captain," Chen's voice came through, tense with urgency. "The Zorax fleet is on the move. We need a decision on our course of action." Steele's eyes locked onto Christian and Elva. "Report to the bridge immediately. We're going to need every advantage we can get." Minutes later, the senior staff of both ships were gathered on the Horizon's bridge, with Captain Voss and her team joining via holographic projection. Steele outlined their dire situation and the unexpected development with Christian and Elva. "We're outgunned and outnumbered," Steele concluded. "But we have two advantages, the cover of the nebula and this unprecedented coordination between Christian and Elva. I propose we use both to strike at the heart of the Zorax fleet." Captain Voss's hologram shimmered as she nodded in agreement. "A bold plan, Captain Steele. What do you suggest?" "A two-pronged attack," Steele replied. "Christian will pilot one of our advanced fighters, while Elva remains on the Horizon to manage our weapon systems. Their shared consciousness should allow for unparalleled coordination between our fighter squadrons and the main ships." The plan was quickly fleshed out, with both crews working in harmony to prepare for the assault. As Christian made his way to the fighter bay, Elva took her position at the weapons console on the bridge. Despite the physical distance between them, their mental link remained strong. The Horizon and Nebula Seeker emerged from the nebula like predators from the depths, their weapons blazing. Christian's fighter led the squadron, darting between Zorax ships with impossible precision. On the bridge, Elva's fingers danced across the console, the Horizon's weapon systems firing in perfect synchronization with the fighter's movements. Through their shared consciousness, Christian and Elva coordinated their efforts flawlessly. As Christian weaved through enemy fire, Elva anticipated his movements, providing covering fire and taking out threats before they could target his fighter. The battle raged on, the Human-Ulian Alliance using their superior coordination to strike at key Zorax vessels. The nebula's swirling gases provided cover for hit-and-run attacks, allowing the smaller force to punch well above its weight. Suddenly, Christian's voice rang out over the comm system. "Taking fire! Port engines hit!" Elva felt the impact as if it were her own body. Without missing a beat, she redirected shield power to protect Christian's damaged fighter as he limped back to the Horizon's hangar. As soon as the fighter touched down, Christian leapt from the cockpit. "Elva, I need to get to engineering. They'll need help with repairs." "Go," Elva replied through their mental link. "I'll take over from here." Christian sprinted towards engineering, his mind still connected to Elva's. As he reached the engine room, he felt a strange shift in his consciousness. Suddenly, he was moving with the fluid grace of an Ulian, his fingers manipulating the ship's systems with Elva's expertise. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Elva's human side took over, allowing her to interface more effectively with the Horizon's systems. This seamless exchange of control and skills allowed them to work at peak efficiency, maximizing their contribution to the battle effort. As the fighting intensified, Christian and Elva's unique abilities led them to a startling realization. Through their enhanced perception, they detected a vulnerability in the Zorax fleet's communication network. "Captain," they spoke in unison, Christian's voice on the engineering deck overlapping with Elva's on the bridge. "We think we can hack into the Zorax network. If we can broadcast an empathic pulse through their fleet, we might be able to disrupt their operations. Steele's eyes widened at the possibility. Do it, he ordered, his voice firm with purpose. Christian and Elva focused their shared consciousness, reaching out through the ship's systems to infiltrate the Zorax network. As they made contact, they channeled their combined empathic abilities, amplified by the ship's transmitters, into a powerful pulse that rippled through the enemy fleet. The effect was immediate and startling. Zorax ships began to falter in their attack patterns, their coordinated assault falling into disarray. Through their connection to the Zorax network, Christian and Elva could sense the confusion and conflicting emotions spreading through the enemy crews. "Captain," Chen called out, her voice filled with disbelief. "The Zorax fleet. They're standing down. We're receiving a transmission from their flagship." Steele straightened his uniform, his face set with determination. "On screen," he commanded, prepared to face whatever came next in this unprecedented turn of events.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.